I think entrepreneurs and skydivers are kind of a similar breed with a couple of screws loose. I couldn't wait to get back in the sky again. And it's a mentality thing, you know?
Yeah.
You take your licks and you learn your lessons and you retool, regear, and you get back at it. I mean, I was not about to let an accident or a problem for which I had caused and that I was responsible for in my career.
All right, Mr. Ryan, we are back here at the temporary future home studio.
The home away from home.
Yes.
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
We will figure it out. Yes.
Curious what the audience what do they think?
They're
Let
probably
us know.
confused.
Feels very professional.
It does. So I'm excited about today's interview. I've known this guy for 6 years or so. Met him when first launched Anomaly. And we did that Kickstarter campaign. And they had these things called backer reports or something like that. And you have to get the person who backed you to then give you their address so you could send them the thing. I didn't know Jay at the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think he had followed some Hatch stuff over the years, but we had never connected. And so I'd emailed him, and I had to be persistent because he didn't respond back. Probably went to spam. My bad. And so then I finally get your address. I send it, and then like 2 weeks later, I get this email from you like, "That was great. I need 6 more." I was like, "Cool. How about we meet in person?" And then we met in person. I hand delivered the books, and then I met with some of your team, and then we did some work together. And yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation. Long overdue. You know, sometimes you just have to wait for the right time.
That's right.
To have the best looking opportunities for the best stories. And I know some of these stories because I've lived them with him or I've heard him tell them. And I think it's going to be quite an experience.
You've talked this one up. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, now I'm nervous.
Well, I hope not to disappoint, but I'm certainly excited to be here and appreciate y'all spending the time.
Well, Jay Prock, we appreciate you being here. Tidewater Staffing, over in Chesapeake, Swamp Man.
Along the along the
I was going to say,
swamp.
you cannot gloss over getting me suckered into a 7.3.
We're gonna get to that. But I think just to get the vibe right, like I tell people all the time, like I'm like when like there's this guy I know, Jay Prock, he has one speed and it's just like balls to the wall. It's just crazy. And maybe the best way to articulate that is some of your skydiving adventures and how many you've done, maybe the worst day that you ever had in a skydiving. And
well, you're here, so it couldn't have gone.
Couldn't have been that bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so 1,100 skydives.
1,100?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I have. It took me about a decade or so to get there. The origin story is kind of funny too. My sister lived in Gainesville at the time. I was going to school in Central Florida at a college called Florida Southern College. She called me out of the blue one day, said she was working for Lululemon, and they had the mantra of do something every day that scares you. And I said, well, that's kind of silly, but okay, what are you doing anyway? She said, we're going skydiving. I said, also kind of silly. Why are you calling me? She said, well, seeing if you want to go with me. I said, well, yeah, not really, but I'm not going to let little sis show me up. So sure enough, we went skydiving out in Jacksonville, and she got done with hers and said, man, that was great, super fun, but I'm never doing that again. And I got down with mine, and I said, that was great. I can't get enough. So for the next decade of my life, I spent nearly every weekend at the drop zone, jumping, getting better, learning, and really appreciating the discipline that is, falling with style.
Wow.
1,100 skydives.
Is that considered a master jumper at that point?
So it's a D license. It's the highest license you can get as a what they call a fun jumper. I did get a coaching rating at one point, but I just didn't really enjoy that so much. So it lapsed, and back to the kind of question was, what was the worst day? The worst day was about 1,000 or so skydives. I was warming up for a competition for what they call swooping, which is fully operational canopy, dive down on the ground, pull up the last second, scoot across the ground or the water in that case, and try to run a course. Yeah, it's as ridiculous as it sounds.
Do you know the story?
Why did I ask?
Most times the parabola, looks like I described. You pull out at the last second, you kind of scoot across the ground. Unfortunately for me, I misjudged my timing, and my parabola looked more like smack. And so I fortunately hit water instead of earth.
That's still like concrete.
It's about at 55 miles an hour. That's about right. So what ended up happening was my body stopped, but all my organs kept going. So I tore my spleen, my colon, my superior mesenteric artery, just all kinds of internal bleeding and damage. They pulled me out of the pond, took me to the hospital, went into surgery, came out of surgery. I'm intubated. And this is the kicker. A week prior, we had found out that my wife and I were pregnant with our first kid. So my mom and my dad came to the hospital in Cape Fear, North Carolina, and I'm intubated and trying to write to them, tell them my mom, bless her heart, as you will, didn't quite get it. When I said, Mom, your grandmother, she said, oh, honey, I know. My sister already had a couple of kids at the time. Dad, I groaned through the intubation tube. Dad got it right away. He said, no, honey, they're pregnant. And that's how my parents found out that that they were going to be, grandparents to our, what is now 4 kids.
Wow.
Since then, I've hit another couple of hundred skydives, set 2 state records that still stand, one for head down formation, one for head up formation. All the while, like steadily progressing through the Tidewater enterprise, and building a business that, sustains my family and about between 3,000 and 4,000 other families here in the Hampton Roads area in the ship repair, shipbuilding, logistics, manufacturing industries. So,
wow. How long was the rehabilitation period?
Took me 3.5 months before I ran my first smaller triathlon shortly thereafter. And I know because I finished the finish line with my buddy, all of us, saying 3 right across the finish line. I didn't have feeling in my left shoulder. There were still some things missing as far as like healing goes, but I got across the line, and the healing continued. I didn't get full functionality back in my left trap muscle for about a full year. I still obviously have scars from about my sternum to below the belt line. That was like 31, 32 staples. And that's where I first learned what an electrocauterizing knife was. And to this day, I have in my office the photos of the records that I've set. A really awesome photo of my wife and I skydiving. And then the OR report from Dr. Marcia Nelson about Saturn Blue, because that's what they called me when I came in because I wasn't conscious.
Wow. How long did it take before you jumped again after that?
Probably 5 or 6 months or so.
And was that because of rehabilitation or because you had to build up the nerve? Or both?
I think entrepreneurs and skydivers are kind of a similar breed with a couple of screws loose. I couldn't wait to get back in the sky again. And it's a mentality thing,
Yeah.
You take your licks, and you learn your lessons, and you retool, regear, and you get back at it. I was not about to let an accident or a problem for which I had caused and that I was responsible for in my career. So as soon as I was able to, really as soon as my wife let me, I was back at it. And that's some of the best times of my life, her and I life, shared together, and man, I could eat up the whole hour talking about skydiving.
Zach, have you ever jumped?
No.
I've done iFly once.
And it's super great. And my kids are doing iFly. So every one of my kids can fly in the tunnel now.
How was it in comparison?
Oh, identical from like a body control perspective and
Really?
everything else. Yeah, a lot of the special forces do their training there, and yeah, it's absolutely a great training tool.
Yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed
I
it.
think younger Zach was interested in it, but never did it. And I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I don't jump anymore. After we had our third kid, the time needed to be at the drop zone on the weekends and the return on whether or not I was going to make decisions about traveling more to kind of hit the next level of performance, or whether or not I gotten kind of out of skydiving what I had intended to get. That decision came to fruition, and that decision was I had gotten what I needed and was not going to risk doing it anymore.
What parallels are there between skydiving and entrepreneurship or building your own business?
Risk management, So I injured myself in a part of skydiving that was voluntary. It was a choice I made to participate in the higher risk reward area of skydiving. You have the exit out of the aircraft, you have free fall, and then you have canopy piloting. Canopy piloting has its own series of things that you can do within it that all have kind of performance metrics, if you will. You can do formation canopy flying. You can do accuracy, where you try to hit a particular target or whatever. Or in this case, what I was trying to do was a genre of canopy flight and canopy piloting called swooping. And swooping is notoriously the highest reward for adrenaline junkies, but also the highest consequence of failure. I have known multiple friends and acquaintances who have been paralyzed, broken bones, and one of which who has killed himself in that specific genre of skydiving. And yet, if you keep it in between the lines and be responsible about your risk reward decisions, I know people who have tens of thousands of skydives, instructors or people who have gone on to just have decades long careers, but recognize where that risk profile is appropriate. And when you talk about that in regards to entrepreneurship, I think there are places and times in which we can take extra risk for perceived reward, but we also need to recognize that, like swooping, sometimes those risks can really bite you. Whether that be fiscal management, such that if you're going to run kind of a skunk works portion of your entity, that if that certain amount of risk or chips that I'm going to put on the table goes away or burns up, that I'm not going to kill the golden goose or that major sustaining function of the enterprise. So between that and humility, I think they kind of run part and parcel with each other. How much risk, what's your appetite,
Right.
and what are you willing to lose if something goes south on your bet?
Yeah, I suppose hiring too fast,
Taking on too much debt,
taking on too much debt. Yeah.
taking a bet into a particular part of a market share that you might not have a lot of experience in. Hey, cool, do it. Dude, don't swoop into the pond.
Right.
Do it in a way that is controlled, and in a way that if you do end up biting the bullet on it, it's not going to crush the enterprise as a whole.
Yeah.
When did you know you were going to be in the business? Like, you went to college. Like, did you think that business was for you? What's the journey of that?
So Tidewater Staffing is a second generation business.
Yep.
Dad started it, and I think Dad knew well before I did that I was going to be involved. Dad learned from the master manipulator, who is my Meemaw, who on October 28th will be 98 years old. She did our workers' comp for about 25 years or so before she retired at 88. And what she was really good at was understanding and working with people, working with their motives, and coercing them into ways that were beneficial for both them and the organization. Dad, I think, took a little bit of that playbook and worked with me from a really young age about understanding some of the ins and outs of the business, but didn't push it on me so hard that I was turned off. So I did things like work in the office in the summer times, or clean out trash cans, or cut the grass and that kind of thing. So I understood from kind of an arm's length about what was going on. And then when I went to school at Florida Southern, I actually tried to one time quit the business school, because that was my original track. Not even necessarily because I thought anything about business, but just figured out that that was kind of the most lucrative path for somebody who didn't have a particular path in mind. So I went to my college professor, Professor Coleman, and I said, hey, I've been talking to some of the psychology and sociology professors, and their classes are a lot easier than econ and stats and stuff. And they said I can pretty much do whatever I want to with either a business degree or a psych soc degree. And, people are cool. And I enjoy understanding that aspect of, working with a business. And I think I can be successful at that. And in a very non-guidance counselor kind of way, Professor Coleman had these bifocals. He leaned forward over the desk and he said, son, you're making a multi-million-dollar mistake. And I had a lot of respect for Professor Coleman, because he was, one, not a doctor, refused to be called a doctor, and two, ended up at the college because he had a successful real estate career within and around Polk County and the community for which we grew, or for which the college grew. They groomed him to come in and run the entrepreneurial school. So when he said, don't do this, it resonated with me. I signed up to take his capstone course and was super looking forward to it, because, Coleman, I did it, man. I'm here. And, I suffered through the econ and I suffered through the stats, and he died. He died before I could take that course. It was esophageal cancer, and it killed him in a hurry. But to this day, I take a lot of those lessons. I even have been now for about a year and a half on the Center for Free Enterprise and Entrepreneurship on the Florida Southern College board down there. Been a ton of fun, and a lot of cool students. Have enjoyed, being a part of that, and in my small way, trying to get back to that program. But it was those sorts of influences that kind of set me up for what I thought was going to be a pretty successful business career. And that was 2008. Not a single business or job prospect in sight. So I convinced a local entrepreneur here who had invested in real estate in a super ironic twist in Central Florida. And I said, hey, I know where those houses are. Let me take them off your hands. He said, okay. So we figured out financing and seller financing and everything else, because I didn't have any credit or whatever at the time, but I also didn't have a job. So I laid tile, I ran insulation, I did plumbing, I did electrical. Man, I've been shocked more times than I can count. And I tell you, ain't nothing as hot as 140-degree attics in Central Florida in the summertime. I've dug out the sewer lines to make sure that one of the duplexes that I had at the time, we had a drainage issue where the plants had eaten into the piping. So I gained an enormous amount of respect for the trades. And then in about 2010, Dad called me and he said, hey, I'm working on my retirement plan. And if you think you have any interest in the business, now is the time.
Wow.
I said, all right. Kind of like Mickey calling me to go skydiving. Well, it hadn't really crossed my mind, but since you put it that way, I certainly have a certain amount of feelings about letting a family business go to somebody else. And I know enough about the business. I think I know what we got going on. Sure, I'll come. So packed up everything that I owned, brought my girlfriend, now wife, girlfriend at the time, now wife, up from Central Florida, and started working in the Portsmouth office. Built up the what we call the light industrial side, which really meant I started by throwing boxes in a container. I figured out what Firewatch was, and cleaning tanks, pushing oil across the bottom of tanks for tank cleaning, and really, from a Tidewater Staffing and contingent labor for the shipyard perspective, flipped burgers for the first year and a half, went into recruiting, understood what it took to work with, relied on a lot of psych soc classes that, I got to take, but didn't major in. And then eventually maneuvered my way up through the business where my sister and I got to a point where we got to officially buy the business from Dad in 2018.
Gosh, I was worried. Where I thought you were going was you doing all the work in Florida. You had proved your grit, but that was just part of it.
That's just part of it.
Wow.
Again, I think it was ways that, I told Dad, here's what I'm doing with the properties. He says, great. That's kind of a weird answer. But looking back on it, what it taught me was appreciation for the trades.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what wrench I was turning, whether it was, putting up drywall, running, doing paint or whatever else. Ships are very, very similar. I mean, obviously the structures are different because it's steel, but you still got to strip them and paint them and, prepare the voids for what you're going into. You got to make sure, there are nuances, but all in all, there are a lot of similarities when it comes to the types of things that you're doing, the types of people that you're dealing with. And so I look at a lot of the things through my childhood, through my adolescence, and through my college years, and shortly thereafter, all as lessons that coerced me into the right direction, which I think was one of the most brilliant, probably things that Dad could have done for the longevity of the business. Once, hey, here it is, but not push. And then two, I'll tell you, I think the other really, really brilliant thing that he did was in about 2015, he stepped back in a big way. And I remember it was the day that he stopped taking his cell phone onto the golf course, which meant for 3 or 4 hours out of the day, damn near every day. At that point,
he was unplugged.
He was not going to be able to solve my problems.
Yeah.
I might get feedback at the end of the day as to how I solved them or what the strategy might be if I screwed something up for the next day.
Yeah.
But him being willing to, and I see this in a lot of my peer groups, whether it be fellow entrepreneurs passing to their next generation or to people in my situation who are having a business pass to them where the reins just are still held on to for way too long. So one of the things that I really, really appreciated that Dad did, I think it was a maneuver of sincere genius, was let it go. If you're going to do it, let it go.
Yeah.
Do you think you're grooming your kids now in the same way to then ultimately be a third generation business?
Man, they're so early now. It's really hard to tell. We do have conversations, I think, with them about entrepreneurship and money management at a much younger age than I think their peers are going to be doing. And we're conscientious about, like, hey, it's not just a lemonade stand. Let's talk about supplies. Let's talk about, you're going to have to borrow money to make this happen. What does that mean?
What cost of goods sold.
You got it. Yeah. It's a different conversation, I think, than a lot of their peers would be having. So from that perspective, I'll give it a solid yes. But am I grooming them to be specific to Tidewater? I ain't put them in a tank yet.
I saw a video of a family trying to groom their kids from a financial thing, and the chore money that they gave them, they made them pay rent. So and some other pieces with that I thought was really interesting. That, here's the $20 or whatever you make a month, and you got to pay $5 a month for you to live here, type of thing. I thought that was really interesting to start that money management a lot earlier than
financial literacy is so big
and so huge. Underappreciated these days, like from a education perspective.
Yeah.
Right. We don't even have home economics anymore for the most part. Like, we're shop, and that's a big thing that we talk about in our industry.
Shop class anymore?
Certainly not to the level that we did when we were growing up.
Oh, damn. That was like my favorite class.
And it's one of those things, like, now you don't even really get it on a real level until you get into the community college level. Right. When they figure out, oh, college isn't for you. Like, all right.
The crazy thing is, so my daughter, she graduated from JMU in May, and it's tough out there right now. And there's a lot of her classmates that are struggling to get a job, and they're now considering going back to trade school.
the blue collar revenge streak, man. I've
It's,
heard it put a lot of different ways, but there's we've got the white collar bloodbath with AI that people are talking about, and the blue collar like revenge on, you know, somebody's got to turn those wrenches.
Well, so, and I'm curious, have you seen the front end of technology changing the workforce in ship repair yet, or is that wave still way out there that hasn't quite hit yet? Because I mean, there's robot painters and robotic welding is emerging. You still haven't seen anything like that yet. Or how will you have to prepare the business?
There are a lot of different ways and technologies that people are trying. There's a lot of interest, but I tell you the way that AI has impacted our business, and I'm, you know, full disclosure, especially at the front end of this tsunami of AI interest, was a big doubter. You know, there's the early bird gets the worm, right? But it's the second mouse that gets the cheese. And my special forces guy says it's always the first one through the door that gets shot. You know,
Right.
So like when we're talking about Clay Christensen's adoption curve, there's like a reality there that the early adopters have to suffer in order to get it right. And I think there are a lot of early adopters out there, whether it be the robotic welding, which I've seen in some like really pristine environments doing really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are environments where there are large sheets that need a very straight weld, and for which case either robotic assisted or truly autonomous robotic welds make sense. But if you got to get down into a tank, or you got to do a pipe weld where you got to use a mirror and go on the back side, it's a different game, and I've yet to see a robot do anything like that.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize we were that close.
Well, I think the HII, I went through their simulator where you could, where they're teaching the whole welding, and they're trying to train the robots to do that. But yeah.
Even from a training perspective, a lot of companies have gone on and purchased weld simulators.
Yeah.
Where they have, you put your mask on and whatever, and you draw a bead, but your bead is on two pieces of plastic and it's simulated via a computer.
Right.
And that's a great training tool. It's not quite reality, but it does a ton to get people's skill sets closer to, so that when they do need to use actual materials and consumables, they're better off for it.
That's like VR goggles?
Basically.
Yeah. That stuff's been around for a while, though.
It has. But you see it much more prevalent now. Like construction, shipbuilding, ship repair, these industries are not what you'd call cutting edge, right? And so there's a lot of lag time from technologies that have existed and true adoption.
There's nothing like actually doing something. It's like driving a car, right? Learning how to drive a car.
Okay, another example, painting hulls. Another example of where, actually it's really blasting where you see it most often, where you have a giant sheet of material, the hull of a vessel, that is super open and would otherwise be done by a specialty tradesperson who's required to have like 2,000 hours worth of experience before they get a certification from the Association for Materials Preservation and Performance. Once they get that certification, then they still have to go through annual research, and it's a lot, right? That person would run what they call a blast gun, and that blast gun sits over their shoulder. They're fully suited up. It is thousands of pounds of pressure that go into a mixture of air and what they call black beauty or sand grit. There are a couple of different substrates that they can use, but for the most part, that's the one that everybody uses. And it's shot against the side of the vessel and slowly chips away the paint, so that is fresh steel that is exposed, ready for another paint coat. Now, there are companies out there that are using robots that do the same thing. They run the blast hose up onto the robot, they suspend the robot by a couple of cables, and the robot slowly maneuvers either via suction or by the cables, or a couple of different methodologies, but uses that hose to go back and forth and slowly do what otherwise would have been done by a person. Now, it's much more economical, it's much more safe, you're not putting somebody into that danger zone, but it still requires somebody to drive it. You think in this day and age of AI, we might be to a place where they would be more autonomous.
Right.
maybe we'll get there. Maybe we won't, because there are a lot of specifics involved with all the mil spec that goes into doing those jobs right. That's an example of kind of robotic and AI's type innovation that might be coming down the pipe. Ones that have been really fun that have impacted my business specifically. We had a marketing person recently leave the company about 6-7 months or so ago. And instead of hiring another person, we used an AI tool that reached back into our historical history of social media posts and whatever else and started generating its own ideas of what we could post out. And so I had a second, what we call sourcer, who runs the job postings on our own internal website and on others that we use to garner interest for the jobs that we have available. So we used her skill set in about 15 to 30 minutes of her day as opposed to a full-time hire, which maximized what she could do and streamlined our voice. Okay, so they're not taking jobs, they're enhancing jobs. They're enhancing people's capabilities and ability to become more effective at what they do. Another one is a benefits program that runs an algorithm that, this one's really wild and super fun. There is a way to take pre-tax dollars from one's paycheck and apply it to an Aflac style benefits program. And if you use pre-tax dollars and the numbers work out correctly in accordance with the algorithms that are in place, they can actually see a small bump of an increase in their pay and qualify for the benefits. And so we changed from an opt-in strategy to an opt-out strategy. And so our participation rate went from like 6 people out of the 650 that we have in the field to nearly 400, because they're not saying no to a pay rate increase and additional benefits coverage. Right. The only reason that's possible is because of background IA algorithm that is making that a calculation for every person every week. And so it's a different series of people that qualify every week. But if it wasn't for that AI algorithm, we wouldn't be able to offer that benefit.
How would you define Tidewater Staffing?
Put people to work and do the right thing every day. That's what we're here to do. What's so fun about our business is that we're so close to almost a community service that it's heartwarming to go into the office on the daily and see the success stories. We got a lot of heartbreak too. There are a lot of people who can be challenging to deal with. But over the years, it has been, really the reason that my sister and I keep coming back to work are the success stories. So in a nutshell, that's our motto. It's plastered all over, the offices. It's in the ethos of the people that we hire. We hire emotionally sensitive people.
Hire W-2 hire? Or
yes, sir. Yeah, every single person that we put to work is a W-2.
Wow.
We have no subcontracted employees. So every one of them qualifies on their first paycheck for our traditional major benefits healthcare program, and also the secondary one that I just described to you. There is additional benefits that come for our staff. And sometimes our staff needs as much help as our associates do. One of the really special things about being a more locally focused company, because if I didn't mention that, we operate only in the Port of Virginia. We do get asked often to go to different parts of the country, but we've made the strategic decision to be good, to be the best at what we do in this area and this area alone. And what that allows us to do is to focus intensely on what, if I was scaling this thing, might be considered micro issues. Things like a blaster, the type of trade that I just described to you, who might need a loan just to make it to payday, right? A staff member who needs help with a battery for their car. Look, those kinds of things are a no-brainer for us, and we help people out on a constant basis. It's special, and it's one of the things that if we were growing for growth's sake, we wouldn't be able to do.
From a recruiting standpoint, how much hiring do you do within the 757 And how much recruiting do you have to do outside the 757 to fulfill all the openings that you have?
We do a lot, almost exclusively from within.
Oh, wow.
We do have some customers who request us to run per diem for people and talent that they get requests for that come from out of state. We have the capabilities, financial wherewithal, and we know how to play by the rules to do that. But it is not, from a recruiting standpoint, something that we do. What we do more often is we take our entry-level employees, like our fire watch, our fire preventers, our tank cleaners, and those sorts of people, and we put them into free classes that we've built over time for things like painting and power tooling. The power tooling being the stripping of the old paint, the painting being the touch-up painting to make sure that they don't have drips and what they call holidays or pockets of drips of the paint that can compromise the coatings. We teach them some of those things that although will not get them a AMP certification, still makes them more valuable to the employers, and as such oftentimes results in a pay raise for them, and ultimately makes them more sticky to the host employer. So we start with the same pool that everybody plays from, which is the stuff that I hear from my customers all the time. You're all the same. Sure. But my competition hasn't spent $1 million plus on their training facility. My competition doesn't have 5 warehouses, 5 rooms full of PPE to make sure that they all show up with their steel toes, hard hats, safety glasses, and the appropriate respirators and fit tests and OSHA training to do the things that they're supposed to do in accordance with the NAVC regs required to operate within the shipyards. We also overhire from a staffing perspective. And what that allows us to do is to send people out to do what we call on-site check-ins. So when we start a new crew, say it's these painters or power toolers that we just got through educating and they're ready to go out and they're chomping at the bit. Great. Well, here's your job-specific orientation where we make sure we put all of your equipment in your hands. You have the supervisor information, you got the pay rates, you know where you're going and everything else. And hey, by the way, I'm Jay, and I'm the one that you're going to see out there in the morning, and I'm going to introduce you to your supervisor. My competition simply doesn't do that. They don't have the staff. They don't have the willingness to stomach some squeeze in margins to make it happen. But ultimately, when we're putting people to work and we're doing the right thing by our associates and by our customers, it comes back to us over and over and over again in repeat business, solid customers, and an opportunity to treat that training and that added level of safety double check and perspective as a competitive advantage.
I can't wait for you to send that to your dad. Just that
clip. That was my next question was like, when was the last time your dad was out in the field? You know,
probably like 2012.
Yeah. It would be really an interesting exercise to take him out and, just to see how things have changed.
He would be the first one to tell you if you asked that the business that we run is not the business that he ran. And at first I was kind of like lukewarm on how that felt. But over time I've really come to accept that as like kind of one of the most sincere compliments that he could give.
Well, yeah, I mean,
he doesn't call you on the golf course anymore.
That's right.
You got to evolve. If you're not innovating, then you're dying. It's
big time. And there was a real stigma associated with temp labor in the ship repair industry, especially when he took over the business. Part of the reason he had the opportunity that he did was because the equity firm that took over the firm that he was working at the time didn't have the stomach for the risk of longshore. So they carved out that part of the business, and he took a what they call a payroll factoring loan from his previous employer, and that's how he started that in an extra mortgage on the house is how he started what was Tidewater Temps at the time. So the stigma was, and he was told by a high-powered player in the industry that he only got 5 minutes with. That player in the industry told him, all you temp companies are the same. Every so often, all you got to do is shed your skin. In response to, hey, what can I do to be better? What can I do to help you? And this is a place where you had hundreds of employees at the time. And what that guy meant was when your workers' comp expense gets so bad that you're not making money anymore, shed your skin, drop your EIN, start up a new business, and start over. Tidewater Staffing has had the same EIN since 1992 when Dad started the company. It has been a personal mission for me to steer the stigmas and the associations of shedding your skin or giving your worst jobs, or that, temps are a lesser portion of your employees, to steer the industry away from those concepts. I'm not silly enough to sit here and say that because of me this happened, but I will tell you, because of the efforts of people like myself, some sincere efforts that the workers' comp provider that we worked with hand in hand to make some of those changes happen and get across to our customers, and the relationships that I terminated with customers who didn't want to believe those things anymore. I do believe that we are in a different era, and that when Dad says we run a different company than what he ran, that is very much what he means by that.
I think you have to evolve at some point, there's always those situations. Even like me getting in shape, right? So like in 2019, you like that transition? I know you like that. So in 2019, I'd go to Tidewater every few weeks, and I'd always had this idea of doing an Ironman. And I was telling Jay about it, and he had done some smaller triathlons. And I ended up doing the one in Cambridge, and somehow that got him excited to do them again, because he's like, if this idiot can do it, I bet I could probably do it too. Little did I realize that was going to jumpstart the one speed crazy that is Jay Prock. like I remember. So then we did Swamp Man, which was the DIY 70.3 ish, because someone did not calculate the bike portion correctly. That's this guy. We did 54 miles instead of 56 miles. So that was my bad. Apologies for that. But we all got pretty fast. And then we decided the next year to do Eagle Man again.
Oh, okay.
Or that was Eric J. Olson and Jay's first time there. Would be my second. And I thought I was going to be pretty close to 5 hours. I bonked on the run and did 5:40. Eric beat me, which really pissed me off. And then I remember seeing Jay come back on the second lap of the run. And this guy, he's just like so determined. His face is just like, and man, I think he went 5:01.
Yep.
So, which is incredibly
happy
fast.
Or mad?
I was really pissed.
Yeah,
because
you wanted
the target time was 5 hours.
Yeah. If I recall, it was maybe hot that day. I went out too hard on the bike, I think.
Extremely hot that day. And it was like 5:01:06 or something. It's to the point. And the other things that Zach's right, jumped off the cliff a little bit. I hired a coach. I had 4 kids at the time, so my workout started at anywhere from 5 to 5:30 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Office is open at 7, so I'm getting out of the shower, taking phone calls at 7 o'clock on my way to the office, that kind of thing. But it was 3.5 years of a really cool, dedicated effort at getting fast.
He got really. You ended up breaking 5 somewhere, right?
The following year at Eagle Man, I went 4:59.
There you go.
So
it was cool to do that journey with you guys, and I hadn't seen that competitor in me in 20 years, I guess. And it wasn't like when I first did the first triathlon, it wasn't there because I wasn't doing it with anyone. But then starting the train with Eric, and then somehow you guys had a conversation, maybe through EA or something. And then we got on these daily, what was that stupid
Marco
app?
Polo.
Marco Polo video apps. Talk shit to each other. It was hilarious. And man, like it was cool. It was fun to be a part of that. And I appreciate those days. Maybe not the 16-hour weeks. I mean, there
were a lot of long weeks in there.
Yeah. I remember Saturdays or Sundays, Eric and I would ride together for 3 to 4 hours and then run for an hour. I'm like, just ridiculous. But that was fun. Any just final thoughts on those triathlon times?
Endurance athletics is a different gear. It was super fun and taught me a lot. Taught me a lot about, you know, being inside your own head and what limits really are or are not. You know, the whole Goggins mentality of like when you think you're done, you still got like 40% left.
Right.
Oh man, I agree with every shred of that. There's so much hidden potential, and people quit so early. And what's really cool is that some of those endurance athletics have passed already to my kids. They love going on a run. They go on like long bike rides. They don't mind getting up early in the morning. So it's maybe less about the athletics themselves, but also about like what
the
legacy
discipline,
you live.
the discipline, and to see something through to completion.
1,000,000%.
Big.
I ended up qualifying the 501 year for the Worlds and competed in St. George, Utah later in that year. That turned that year into a really, really long year. I competed again, got the 459, qualified again, chose not to go to where those nationals were and competed at the USAT nationals in Milwaukee the following year. That was a shorter distance. That's the Olympic distance. But the funny thing about all these races is, you know, you can race a 5K or you can race a full Ironman. The pain's the same, you know, it's just a matter of how long it lasts.
Right.
So,
yeah, for the longest time, I remember like I had done many, many, many halves, marathons, and I would just tell myself, man, I don't think that I could do another 13. But then it was just like, you're right. Yeah, it's all mental. And 13, 26, you know, it's
full disclosure, I've yet to go a full marathon.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not sure it's in my stars.
It's so mental, but I mean, to what we were just saying, you know, it's like anyone that asked me help from the business side, it's like, have you ever done a 5K? Have you ever done a 10K? Oh, man, I could never do that. And it's just like, well, I'm not your guy.
Yep.
You got to have the discipline.
Have you taken the time to plan out your week, your quarter, your year? What are you doing to get there?
Right.
Right. Those are the same skills that it takes to plan out your next race. Christina hit me up earlier today. She's like, you want to do Chattanooga? Oh my God. If you know anything about these races, Chattanooga is full of monstrous hills. I don't know.
I thought you hated the hills in Utah.
I do.
I do. Yeah, I remember.
But it was Christina that suggested it, not me.
There's nowhere to train. I mean, there's nowhere to train around here.
It's true. It's true.
I mean,
Chattanooga has the quick river, though, I think.
It's true. Yep. So I think that's what she likes about it. She's done Wilmington, and you know, swim is her worst event. So like maybe that's what
I might actually be able to win the swim.
Yeah.
Had I known I was going to be that close at the time, I think I got 8th in the swim. Had I known, I would have probably pushed it a little harder.
Stud swimmer over here. I don't know if you know.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That was not my forte going into this stuff. Actually, that was where I ended up gaining. Actually, lost some speed on the bike on the 459. Yep. But gained like 3 minutes on the swim and had the best swim of my life on the 459 day. So what I lost on the bike, I more than gained on the swim.
Wow.
That was what made the difference.
The best part about being done with the race, though, is you can go eat.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. I never let it shoot. When I was training, nothing slowed me down from eating.
Well, I know. I was like, man, carb loading is another. That's man.
So speaking of eating,
yeah. Speaking of eating, what's your go? Is there a go-to meal of the region? What is the place that
of this area?
Of this area.
Oh, soft shell crabs, baby.
it's starting to come out.
Oh man, yeah, I love me a good soft shell. And if not soft shell, they always got a crab cake. So I'm a relative crab cake connoisseur. Big fan of those. She crab kind of goes hand in hand with that, and then the oysters. You got to get oysters. One of our fun family things to do. You know, we're not big on like super extravagant trips or whatnot, but we love a good weekend trip up to like the Middle Neck, checking out some of the like Deltaville and the wooden boats and some of the history around there. And that area has just got great oysters.
Yep, that's what I've heard.
The Lynn Haven River, you know, right here in our backyard. Some of the best oysters on the eastern seaboard. You know, Okay. So hands down, if you're going to have oyster experience in Southeast Virginia, it's the Atlantic on Pacific. That's where you're going to find the largest selection, most fun people to talk to, where they're shucking right in front of you, and you can get probably, I don't know, anywhere from 15 to 30 different kinds of oysters. Happy hour from like 4 to 6 or something, like an early happy hour. That's a good cuisine experience.
I love getting the answers about food that Tim and I won't eat.
Oh no!
But that's okay, because that's your choice.
Yeah.
I have a seafood allergy, so I can't eat those kind of foods. But sounds delicious.
Man, Jay, it's been a pleasure.
It's been super fun talking with you guys. I appreciate the opportunity. Y'all have interviewed a lot of friends of mine, and it's been cool listening to some of your shows. It's nice to have finally made the big show.
There you go.
Well, you got the real lights and everything.
That's
It's
right.
true.
They
It's
didn't
true.
get that.
It's true.
It's great stuff, guys. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thanks so much.